Look, if you had the option, you would probably watch ahead too, right? Hey, it's Romania Black. And yeah, I was going to wait for comments, but then I was like, I really want to see the second half of teaching me how to play shogi, because Death to Boredom, as well as Devilesque, helped me to get a translated in credit scene that was the little song where they teach you how to play shogi. They don't go through the whole thing, all of the parts and pieces. They mainly talk about three pieces in the game. So I wanted to talk about that before we started. And then I was like, well, I have a feeling that the ED credits for this episode may finish up the rest of the shogi pieces, because there were like 10, or maybe they'll just talk about it in the episode. So I wanted to go ahead and start. But I did get a hold of Death to Boredom, found the end credits with English subtitles, and Devilesque put it there on the Discord. So if you're on Patreon, you're on the Discord, you'll be able to go to the March Comes In Like a Lion channel and see that little clip there. It's super cute, and it makes much more sense now that it has English subtitles. So if you go back to the end credits from last episode, episode 7, you have the pawn is the one with the paw on a stick, and it like punches people with its paw, and it moves forward one space at a time, kind of like the pawn does in chess. Then you have the knight, which functions the exact same way as the knight in chess, where they can move around, and it's the cat that's on the spring, so it's jumping over everybody. Makes more sense. Now, the gold general is a piece that is not in chess, so I didn't know exactly what it does, and I've wrote it on Whiteboard Kun over here. You all can't see, Whiteboard Kun's off screen, but the gold general is the bodyguard to the king. So that makes more sense. They kind of do like what the queen does in chess, where they're situated around the king. In chess, the queen can move anywhere on the board. They can do literally anything. In this, the gold general surrounds the king and can protect and attack from all sides. Here's the crazy part, though, and I didn't realize this about shogi. If your gold general gets killed, it goes over to the other side and protects the king on that side, which is crazy. So that makes more sense now. But yeah, so I'm excited to get into this episode. It's the 8th episode. 8's my lucky number. I'm excited to see what's going to happen with this episode. The only other thing I have before we start, because like I said, I didn't get time to check comments this week, was that Death to Boredom did post, this is the end card for episode 7, which is by Chibuya Tetsuya, who is actually the mangaka for Shido no Jo. Now, I know about a Shido no Jo. It's a boxing manga. I know about that, and this style does look like it. It's so cute. I love the brush strokes. It looks like watercolor. That is so adorable. I'm kind of in love with that, and it's like baby Rei when he was a kid learning shogi. It's so cute. It's adorable. This one's one of my favorites. I think it's one of my favorite in cards so far. I really, really like it. But yeah, I'm super excited to dive into this episode and just see what we get. But real quick, I want to give a special shout out over to our philanthropy tier over on Patreon to thank them for their support alongside the other patrons and subscribers. You all are amazing. But these individuals get a special shout out in my video. So thank you to Alex Cornejo, to Anime Annie, to Be Happy, as well to Dana, to Destiny Marie, to Danger Zone, to Eric, to Kiri, to Lyndon, to El Freya, to Boo Boo, to Danny Don Mai, to Danavin, as well as In Lee 2, who is new, Murphew, Nicholas, Nameless Monster, Sunspots, Trails, Translucent Men, Shimoyama, and Matthew Palfinier. Thank you all so much for all of your support. I really appreciate it. All of my love. So yeah, I'm super excited. I cannot wait. I just got off work a little while ago. I had some extra time this afternoon, and I was like, do I want to react to something? And I was like, oh, I want to watch March Comes In Like a Lion, because this series is so good. So we're going to start episode 8, my lucky number, and see what happens. And we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Oh, bitch, please. Oh, I'm still mad. I am furious. I am pissed off and furious, and like, on behalf of Rei, he shouldn't have to deal with that bitch. No. Oh, we're going to talk about it, but I was very mistaken, right? I didn't quite realize how bad she was. I thought, and I want to try to give like characters a fair shake and everything, to say, oh, okay, well, she's come from a place of like not meeting up to her father's expectations and all this, but no, she is toxic. She is poison. She's someone that I just dealt with this type of character in Skip and Loafer a few weeks ago, but even she does not, this girl takes the cake. Like, that character was not even on this level of psychological manipulation. I'm like, if this girl put as much energy into shogi as she does deconstructing Rei's psyche, she'd already be at the top of the Dons. She wouldn't even be having to worry about anything. I'm like, girl, she is the worst. She's the worst. And the worst part about it is that Rei is a nice person. And deep down inside, Rei takes everything so to heart. And he takes things so crushingly personal that he can't tell her to go away. We're going to break it down, but she has Rei wrapped around her finger through psychological guilt and fear and manipulation. And I just need Nikaido. Nikaido, on the one hand, that bed being there is like the saving grace of this series, because it kept her from staying away from him in his own bed, which we're going to talk about that. I was like, hell no. And then Nikaido having a reason to go over there and a place to stay. I need Nikaido to go over there, bitch slap this girl, and tell her to get out real quick. I need him to be like, bitch, leave. Leave my best friendo alone. You're not welcome here. Immediately. Because Rei's too nice to do it. But Nikaido might be like, yeah, you need to leave. She's so awful. And I want to give her the benefit of the doubt, but no, the manipulation she does in this episode, I'm like, oh no, she needs to stay as far away from Rei as possible. Oh my God. It makes me sick to my stomach how cold and heartless she is, and how she is so tactical in her manipulation and why she came there. Oh, bitch. We're going to talk about that. I'm glad we had like a happy first start to this episode. This first half of the episode was so good and kind and funny. And then the moment it's like thunder clouds in the distant thunder, and then and that's it. Oh my God. Oh my God. She is frightful. I'm so pissed for Rei. I want to like just hug Rei and wrap him in a big embrace and be like, it's okay. You don't have to deal with this woman. You should get away from her. But, also, I said this in the reaction. I feel I know why Miura loves this show, because it's just like, it has the emotional devastation of Berserk just on a real and more modern personal level. And I'm like, oh, I know why Miura likes this show. It is like gut-wrenching, and it just sticks the knife in and just twists it. But I feel so bad for Rei. I feel so much for him. So let's talk about this episode. Nikaido is the best thing since sliced bread. He is literally the cutest. Nikaido is so kind. And I think I know why Rei feels so unsettled around Nikaido. Because everyone he's had in his life, except for maybe his biological parents and his sister, like in the household with Koda is slightly manipulative because he's just taken Rei in to teach him shogi. So there is an underlying ulterior motive of wanting, Rei to do well at shogi because that's like his legacy. Then you have Ayumu, the one sibling that wants nothing to do with shogi, who doesn't want anything to do with Rei, and is standoffish to him. Then you have this piece of work, Kyoko, who is like a bolt of lightning. She is dangerous and a giant old red flag, and so she's not a good influence. And so Rei's only known, like, for his childhood growing up, these people that are not good people. Or at least they don't have Rei's interests in mind. And then he gets to Akari and the sisters, and he likes Akari and the sisters, but they give him his space, right? Akari is very much, she gives him his space, and he can distance himself from her. So he doesn't feel like he has to get as close or open up to Akari if he doesn't want to. And Hina and Momo are too young to really be a part of that. And the grandpa's out doing his own business. But Nikaido forces his way into Rei's life, but it's because he cares about Rei. He wants Rei to be the best version of himself, which is polar opposite of Kyoko. Kyoko wants Rei to be the worst version of himself, which it's like, bitch, don't mind him, mind yourself. Like, if you paid more attention to yourself than Rei, you might be in a better situation. But no, she's like one of those people that is toxic and wants to tear people down to build herself up. Like, if I can make him suffer, it'll make me feel better. I take back everything. I was wrong. I was mistaken. A few episodes ago, I was like, oh, well, I think that Rei could, patch things up with Kyoko and they could be in a ship together. Hell no. I take that back. I was wrong. She needs to stay away from him. She needs to go get some therapy, get some help. Leave Rei alone. He has his own problems to deal with. She needs to stay as far away from him as possible. So I take that back. Nope, absolutely not. I will ship Nikaido and Takahashi with Rei 1,000 times more than that bitch. No way, no. Toxic people like that, like, you go take care of yourself. You leave these kind, gentle souls alone. And I don't think Rei needs to have the responsibility to fix her. She needs to fix herself. Like, I feel like she wants Rei to be jealous of her for her, to be jealous for her. I feel like he wants her to she wants him to suffer and crawl back to her. And it's like, oh, bitch, no. I would kick that door down and shove her out and be like, bitch, leave. Because there were so many little things she did that it was just like, it made my skin crawl. I was like, no. So before we get to that, let's talk about these pieces on the shogi board. So the pawns get to move up. They didn't quite explain all the rules of shogi, which is fine. I feel like we'll go back through them as the series goes on. I feel like that's going to be something that we do. But we have the idea of the pawns. Then we have the lance. I did not know about the lance. The lance can only move forward. I thought they were the rook at first, but no, they can only move forward. And for some reason, they can't turn back. They can only move forward and go straight as far as you like. That's as far as they go. But they said something about, like, they couldn't pass the pawns, it didn't seem like. Then you have the knights. Now, the knights, in chess, the knights go up 2 and over 1. That's, like, the thing that the knights do. And I think that's what they were saying that they do here. They described it as this, like a Y, but I think it's up 2 and maybe it's across 1 instead of over 1. I don't know. It feels like the knights do a different movement than they do in chess, which is fine. Then you have the silver general, which is like a lesser version of the gold general. And their movement is weird. Like, if they're here, they can go diagonal, kind of like a bishop can, but they can also move forward 1. So their movement's a little bit different. They're not quite a full-on general, but they're close. Then you have the gold general that likes being near the king. Then you have the rook. So they actually do have a rook. And the rook, I like that they made it like a cross. They can move either direction like that instead of just moving forward. The strongest warrior. And then I like it says they're popular with people of all ages. Then they have the bishop. And the bishop moves diagonally, which is kind of like a bishop in chess. It runs the exact same way pretty much. And then they have the king. And the king can move any square just one time, right? So, and then you have the king. So yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 different pieces, and there's 20 pieces altogether. Cool. So yeah, this all makes sense. Now, when they talked about getting into the enemy territory, when they talked about that, they talked about them being promoted to having the same abilities as gold, which is like the gold general that can move everywhere. That part, I'm going to need to see in practice. But it's so cute. Nikaido is so good at explaining things and teaching things. And I think that that's why Rei also struggles with, I think maybe, here's the thing that's kind of interesting, is that you have Nikaido. Nikaido has his own drawbacks. His health is a big drawback, and he's not necessarily a prodigy, but he knows how to apply his talents to his hobby. So he's kind of like, I'm not a prodigy. I'm not the best person that plays shogi ever. I'm not like, Rei, you're kind of a prodigy. He's like, I'm not that, but I have skills and I know how to apply my skills. And he's so optimistic and positive all the time. I feel like because he thinks I have to be. He's like, I only got one life. It may not be very long with my disease. I need to make the most of it. So he's definitely like in YOLO mode. And that's kind of, he wants something that's going to outlive him. He's got the Alexander Hamilton like syndrome going on. Then you have Rei. You have Rei and you have Kyoko. I'll be honest, the storm themes that follow Rei and Kyoko, I feel like Rei and Kyoko are far more alike than they realize, because I think both of them, they struggle with this imposter syndrome. I feel like Rei is a lot worse at hiding it. I feel like they both struggle with imposter syndrome and purpose with life. And they probably have depression alongside of it. The thing is that I feel like Rei's introverted and Kyoko's extroverted about it. I feel like Rei, he gets depressed. He doesn't feel like he has the imposter syndrome where they expect him to become a master. He doesn't think he can do it. He doesn't think he's good enough. He doesn't think that he deserves to be in this position because he's not driven by a purpose like these other shogi players are. So it draws him into a slump. But the difference between him and Kyoko is that he's kind. Is that at the end of the day, he is kind-hearted and she is selfish and cold. Right? He, at the end of the day, he's this kind-hearted person, and that's what draws people to him, but he suffers from all of these different afflictions with his psyche. And then you have Kyoko, who is selfish, who is not, she's not thinking of her dad. We'll talk about that point there. She gets onto Rei for it, and I'm like, bitch, calling the pot, calling the kettle black. But she seems like she's jealous. She seems like she has imposter syndrome because she doesn't feel like she can be good enough, and so she tries to bring Rei down rather than build herself up. And she seems like she probably struggles with depression as well. And she makes bad decisions in life kind of based off of her emotions. The difference is she's yandere and also is cold and unfeeling and doesn't want to acknowledge it. And she just like turns it into aggression. Whereas Rei turns it into isolation and like indifference. She turns it into aggression. And I think her and Rei are more similar than they realize, and maybe Kyoko realizes how similar they are, and that's why she's mad at him, because she's like, she thinks that he has it put together more than she does, because we'll talk about that when she goes to his apartment. I think she thinks, she's like, well, you have it all together, but we're the same, so why is this happening to you and not me? And I feel like we're going to talk about that, but they're more different, they're more similar than different, but the differences are huge, and they are very important. So, oh my God, this episode... oh my God. I also just love where he's like, damn you, Nikaido, this book's pretty easy to understand. I love that we see Rei more and more emotional, especially showing his aggravation with Nikaido. But how can you not like Nikaido? He's so nice. But then when he looks, Rei's like, damn it, this book is pretty easy to understand. Like, curse you, how dare you do it? And then he realizes that he's like, well, how did this get published? And he did it. And he's like, Nikaido, he's like, don't tell me you did it. And he's like, yeah, I wrote and drew it. You noticed. And they're like, really? And I'm with the butler. I would be like, I'm touched. This is amazing. And Nikaido's like, well, I wanted a way to like merge my love of drawing with my hobbies that I've had since I was a kid. And the thing of it is, Nikaido's family's got money. They have their own family New Year's party. They have money. I was thinking of Sex Pistols the whole time he said that, like community bears party. But Nikaido's family has their own party. And so he's like, oh, I just, I asked the Dai Tokyo printing company to just throw something together. I was like, you don't just ask a printing company to throw something together. Nikaido, his background is so elitist, but he's such a nice person that you kind of just overlook it, right? He's like, oh, my family's got connections to a print company. I just threw this together. It's no big deal. And Rei's like, you don't just throw this together. This is not just something that you just pop out and there it is. No. So Nikaido is such a great character because on the surface, he just seems so privileged. And you should, like, I was expecting to not like him. I was expecting to think he was going to be snobby or stuck up, but instead he turns out to be like the most heartwarming person ever. And you're just like, oh, well. So yeah, deluxe edition with gold leaf, UV processing, a cloth back cover, spin, end papers, end sheets, a flower pattern bound spine, a trans 2VC, and embossed. Yes, it's super fancy, but we just threw it together. And then, yeah, so as they're leaving, I like that he has the pea coat on and Rei has his little jacket. And the thing about it is Rei is so used to probably Kyoko's mental and verbal abuse and physical abuse that it's hard for Rei to trust someone and to put trust in someone being like, what's the catch? Like, what's the catch going to be? You're staying at my apartment. You're being nice to me, but what do you want out of it? And Nikaido, I think, just wants friendship. He just wants a rival. He just wants somebody to play shogi with him, and that's Rei. And Rei just doesn't understand how somebody could be normal and considerate based on what he's grown up with. So it's absolutely insanity. He's like, we did a good job. And he's like, this is how you build the future, one small step at a time. And I don't think Rei is focusing on the present. He's just thinking about the future and the past. He's not thinking on the present. He's so consumed with what he needs to do in the future to get out of the past. He's not thinking about what's happening in the moment. Whereas Nikaido is the opposite. Nikaido doesn't care about the past. Whatever. Nikaido, I think, somewhat cares about the future because he knows it might be fleeting, but he's obsessed with the present. And we just do one step at a time, one small step, and we build up to it. And I could see why Rei would be so jealous and just being like, how does Nikaido do it? And Nikaido was like, well, I'm going to your apartment, of course. And he's like, no. He's like, why would I shy away from sleeping over at a best friend's place? The insanity of this episode is that we have two instances where Rei tells someone no, and they still come over. But the thing about it is, the tone and the meaning behind it is so drastically different. Like, at first, you might be like, oh, well, Romania, you're being a hypocrite because, you know, how is Kyoko inviting herself over any different than Nikaido inviting himself over? It's different. It's different. Nikaido and Rei have this kind of and yes playful relationship, and Rei's like, whoa, wait a minute, no. He's like, well, you're my best friend. He's like, don't worry about it. And he's like, worry? Well, shouldn't you? And he's like, oh, hello. And they like move in this bed, and they're like, oh, put that in front of the closet on the right side. And he's like, here's some late night snacks and breakfast for both of you. And he's like, oh, I couldn't help but being concerned about your apartment's lack of daily necessities, Kiriyama. This would be a good opportunity, so I picked something out. And it also folds up into a couch. So yeah, I feel like, you know, Nikaido is like, hey, I'm trying to be a helpful friend. Here's something, you know, to have, and this way I can come over and stay with you, but also it's just me being a friend. The tone and implication of it is innocent. Whereas when Kyoko comes over, the tone is not innocent. And I wanted to shove her out a window. I was like, oh no. So we'll get to that. But yeah, I just love that he's like, it's okay. And of course, Rei's in the darkness, right? I feel for Rei because he's so sad. And Nikaido's trying to help him make him feel better because he wants him to be the best version of himself. And he's like, well, this will help you if I'm over. And then it seems like maybe there's progress made. And then Kyoko shows up and it's just like, it's like you planted a seed or you planned a basketball game out at the park and you got everything all ready to go and you cultivated and you did all this. And then a giant monsoon came and destroyed it. And that Kyoko is a storm. She's a tempest. And she's that. And the thing of it is that Nikaido, you know, is a storm of his own, but he's, you know, very congenial. Rei talks about how he's drawn to these like lightning type personalities, these bright personalities that flail like lightning. The thing about it is Nikaido is like a beam of sunshine, and that sunshine is authentic and it's steady and it's always going to be there. Lightning is almost an illusion of light. It is light, but it's an illusion of that warmth. It's just flashing, fleeting, and then it brings a storm right behind it. So it is the opposite of sunlight. And I feel like Rei's drawn to it. He's drawn to that light no matter what form it comes in. And in the case of Kyoko, it comes in a very dangerous and unsettling form. So we get the little cat dance, which is super cute. I liked that a lot. I feel like there's another part to it we haven't seen yet because we didn't get the rest of it. But I love that Rei's just like, you bastard, as he's trying to like put all the comforter and everything and put it up. At least the couch folds up and it's kind of cute. But they go to the shogi hall and again, he's just in the darkness. I like that they frame Rei in, I'm going to take a picture of that. They frame him in the shadows, in the like the drabness of the shogi hall, right? As guess who just got done making out but Issa and Smith. I swear they just show up together like, what? Oh, what's going on? How's it going? And they're like, is Nikaido with you today? Everybody just loves Nikaido, right? And Rei's like, And they're like, we saw his passionate commentary as they were like, look at this. And Rei's like, I can't deny it. The thing, though, that they say, though, is they talk about him having anemia and a bout of it afterwards. And he couldn't get to his feet. And Smith gets a little bit more like down to earth in that moment because they talk about being at their friends and they're like, oh, it was so beautiful and passionate. Look at you guys. Look at you guys being best friends. Maybe more than that. Who knows? And Rei's like, I can't deny it at this point. But then he talks about the anemia and Rei's like, what? Is he okay? What? I didn't know that. So I feel like Smith and Issa know a little bit more about Nikaido's condition than Rei does. They're like, it used up a lot of energy and he's trying his hardest. Now, this part is just because we, the audience, we know Rei. We're watching Rei. We're seeing this all from Rei's point of view. So I get what Issa and Smith were trying to do when they were like, hey, Nikaido, he's getting himself all worked up, but that just means he's wanting you to work hard so you don't get demoted. So I see what they're doing, and it's like, I respect them because they think they're helping Rei. They think they're helping him to get motivated, be like, hey, Nikaido's, trying his best to motivate you. Don't let him down. But we, the audience, have seen just how much Rei is putting on himself and how depressed he is and how much this pressure is getting to him and it's making him feel worse and worse. So it's like Issa and Smith telling him to do it for Nikaido. It's like, that's not necessarily helping. It's just adding more stress and pressure to Rei, who needs it the least. And that's before Kyoko even shows up. Also, want to make note that Smith with the scarf kind of matches Issa's outfit. So my headcanon is that Issa gave him the scarf. I'm just saying. That's my headcanon. You all can disagree with me or not. And they're just like, it's kind of annoying since not one bit of it reaches your heart. And that's the thing. They say that not one of it's reaching Rei's heart, and I agree on some level with that maybe it's not reaching Rei as much as they think it should, but you can't tell a guy like, why isn't this touching your soul? And Rei's like, I don't know what you want me to do. So Nikaido's on a winning streak. He has 6 wins, and Rei is 3-3, and the match that's coming up is going to determine whether he gets demoted or moves on. What a time for a skank to show up to play emotional manipulative mind games. What a time, right? And it makes sense now why Nikaido didn't show up, because he knew that Rei had a match the next morning and he wanted him to be focused and have some sleep. And then this bitch shows up to keep that from happening because she's a trollop. But anyway. Oh, she makes me mad. So yeah. So Rei talks about having the 3 wins and 3 losses, and that you get demoted. What does he say there? He has 3 lists. He's like, if I don't hold my ground, I'll slide down until I reach the point of demotion. If I get a demotion, it doesn't get erased until you have more wins the following season. So if you start to flop, it is much harder to pull yourself back up than it is to just stay on top. Like, the ladder gets harder to climb once you start falling down, which is insanity. And then he talks about how his foster dad was under the same roof for years, and he was downgraded from B1 and struggled with the same type of stagnation. That little shot of baby Rei, though, where it like cuts from Coda to Rei, that is like the most adorable. I want to get a picture of it. It's like the most adorable picture ever of him just sitting there clutching his little heart. That is freaking adorable. He's so cute. His dad is beautiful. I'm like, his dad is so handsome. And Rei looks a lot like him. But he thinks back to Nikaido, and he's like, why is Nikaido where does his energy come from? Does he doubt himself? Like, is it practice? What is it? Nikaido has this passion because I really want Rei to talk with Nikaido to see exactly what the answer to that question is. Where does all his energy come from? I really want him to talk to Nikaido and find the answer to that question. I mean, we can speculate on it if it's his passion to like create a legacy, if he's doing it because he cares about Rei, like if that's just how he feels about life. Like, there's a lot of different answers we could get for it, but I want Rei to find that answer out from Nikaido specifically. He's like, when I think about that, whenever I'm with him, I feel suffocated. And I gradually get disgusted with myself. And that's what I think is the deal with Kyoko, is that Rei, he feels suffocated by the energy and passion that Nikaido has. And then he feels disgusted with himself because he's like, well, why can't I live up to that same standard? And I think that Kyoko is the same about Rei. Like, she sees that Rei is such a kind-hearted person and that he's selfless, and she feels suffocated by it because it makes her feel disgusted with herself because she's not the same way. And so it's just this cycle, right? So, and Rei, Rei needs to get through this cycle of self-doubt and self-loathing and start to come out to the other side of it. And maybe he'll be more like Nikaido, but people like Kyoko are just keeping him from getting to that point. And I want to talk about the scene with Akari and them when they're talking about the drawings and everything. It doesn't show Rei with them in that moment, but we find out that he was there, and hearing the grandpa and Akari's conversation about getting excited about Shogi was all from Rei's point of view. And it kind of sucks because, Akari and Hina and Momo and the grandpa, they're all just doing Shogi for fun and it's recreational. So they're all excited. They're like, what a wonderful game. What a lifelong passion and fun you can have with this game. But the moment that it makes it about capitalism and putting your life on the line, suddenly it's not so fun anymore. And Rei just can't see the joy in Shogi right now that they see. And I feel like Nikaido needs to tell him about where his joy from Shogi comes from for him to fully relate, right? But I love the little backstory we get real quick with his dad, where he's like, when we play just for the enjoyment of it, what does he say there? He says, Akari's word prompted an image of my father to cross to mind. His body would rock back and forth gently. He looks a lot like Rei, just with shorter hair. His arms folded in his left hand on his cheek. It would happen whenever he was focused. I don't know if that's like an attribute of someone that's neurodivergent, if that's his dad, just if that's part of his dad, if that's part of it. But Rei looks so much like his father. It's kind of insane. Like, he looks like he'll look just like him when he gets older. He's like, I enjoyed watching him when he was like that. He's like, I could only see it when I did my very best after studying so much that it made my head spin. But I love this little moment here. And he says what does he say about his dad? He says, I wanted to see that habit, so I desperately tried my best. He says, kind, considerate of the people around him, always smiling. But around me, I saw his true face stripped of all the social niceties. That moment is so good, because what it's suggesting is that his dad, for his profession at the hospital, puts on a face of like, hey, I'm always great and always chipper and in a great mood and being social because that's part of my job and that's what I have to do. But I love that Rei talks about seeing his father stripped down to being focused and being like his true self and seeing his true face, because to me, that suggests that for Rei, seeing his father like that was a sign that his father wasn't perfect, and was a sign that that was okay to say that, yeah, my dad, underneath the persona of the smile and all the social niceties, he really can be focused and troubled like I am. And there's a connection there. And he's like, and that bonds us closer together. He's like, I also get to see my father's true face. So it's like something special that's just for me that the rest of society doesn't get to see. So of course, yeah, Rei would like that. And that scene and that line is so good, right? But then, yeah, he goes back and then he thinks in that moment, how could I have forgotten? I'm standing in the world of Shogi that my dad longed for. And for a second, I was like, okay, this is the motivation that Rei needs, because he realizes that this world of Shogi is what his biological dad dreamed of. His dad had always wanted to be a professional Shogi player, but he wasn't good enough. So he's like, I should be thankful that I'm in this position. It's what my dad wanted, and he never had the opportunity. I'm getting to live for a dream that he had, and he never got to fulfill. And I love him just looking at the river, something that he loves. How could I have forgotten that? Well, I think you forgot that because you've been around toxic people up until recently, when you've gotten your own place and around Nikaido, and Nikaido's showing you the joy of Shogi and why it's great. Yeah, I think so, because Kyoko seems to express just how horrible Shogi is, because she wasn't good enough at it and has seen how it's deteriorated her relationship with her own family. So yeah, Rei was just starting to build all that back up, and I still think he can build it back up, but I need everybody in this show to like become a gold general around Rei to keep this bitch from him. I need that to happen because she's kind of the worst. Because, yeah, and the best part of this episode, damn, in the darkness, like the way that this series plays on shadows and light. Oh, the animation in this episode is just bar none. But yeah, there she is. She's standing there. Oh, and he's just like, nope. Oh, she's so wicked. Mm-mm. Yeah, distant thunder. I think my favorite shot of the whole episode is when he's inside the house and it's monochrome and he looks outside the window and it's color. And he talks about seeing the lightning bolt, seeing the flash of lightning in the distance, like the distant thunder of a storm coming. And then we see his little precious tiny face that's the cutest thing on earth. Yes. Yeah. Freaking adorable. And seeing him even if that brilliance brought rain, I loved it. It's basically her. She's this false warmth, this lightning. And yeah, she's beautiful and dazzling, and there's like an intoxication about her where you kind of want to know her more, but it's like the moment you do, like my stomach churns thinking of her in this episode. I don't know if I have had a visceral initial reaction to a character that's negative like this with anybody but her before. Like I instantly don't like her, and I instantly want her away from the story. I know she's going to be the drama. I know she's here to cause pain to our main character, but I'm like, he's just suffering enough. Get the hell out of here. Mm-mm. He's like, why are you here? What an odd thing to say. And here's the thing. I hate whenever a character is like, get out, and they don't leave. I'm like, nope, consent is a thing. And if they don't want you there, you leave. And I'm like, bitch, no. Like, it's literally a form of assault. Like, and maybe not assault, but it's harassment. Like, leave him alone. Because he says, I'll walk you to the station. It's late. That means you need to leave. And then she goes, oh, you're not going to let me in? I've come all this way. Like that emotional manipulation. She instantly is like, well, won't you let me in? I'm like, no, he said no. And he even goes. She like looks to him and she's like, why? And he's like, why do I have to say it? And the look on his face when she's like, well, why won't you let me in? The look on his face looks so mature. He's only like, what, 17? He's 17, but he looks like 25 in that moment where he's just like, it's messy. I don't want to be around you. I don't want you here. I don't like just the look on his face. Like it made me, when he looks off to the side like that and he's like, it's messy for once. I wanted to just chuck her off the building. I was like, you leave him alone because he doesn't want you there. He's like, why? It's messy for one. And she's like, fine, show me. I'm like, bitch, he said no. No means no. Get out. And she doesn't. She literally pushes her foot to the door and says, these are excuses. Are you stupid? Like she's like, if there's nothing to show, it can't be messy. Like she's so mean and cruel. And I'm like, bitch, he told you no. And he's like, the last train is, he says, forget it. And she just basically wiggles her way in there. And then she takes her shoes off. Like it's so manipulative. She just doesn't walk in and he's like, okay, leave. She takes her shoes off. She's like, I need my feet to rest. She soaks her feet. She makes herself at home. She asks about it. She's like, oh, I thought this place was going to be a dump, but lucky for you, it's decent. I'd be like, bitch, get out. And then she like demands that he gets her a towel. And he's just trying to be polite. And she's like, why'd you choose this town? And he's like, well, it has a big, beautiful river. I like the river. And she's like, oh, really? She's like, I barely know anything about you. And she's like, can you fix it? The apartment's cold. I'm like, bitch, you've been here 5 minutes. And she's trying to worm her way in and like Stockholm syndrome him into letting her stay. And here's the thing. She knows exactly the buttons to press. She knows the cardigan he's wearing is her father's. So she knows that she could start off by saying that, where she's like, oh, well, why don't you go back home? She's like, our father misses you. But bitch, she don't know. She's not been home. So she doesn't know that. And then she pulls out the bedding. And she's like, you must have just gotten it. It doesn't smell like you yet. Like, just like suggesting that she's always been around him, that she knows what he smells like. I was like, no. And then she's clearly jealous because she looks at the view and sees it. She's like, this is where you've been living. And she's clearly jealous that he has a great view and has a decent place to live. And then she calls him self-centered. And I'm like, saying you're so self-centered. Dad was feeling down afterwards. And she's like, who's the person that gave you this place? And he's like, oh, the chairman. She's like, oh, he's always had a soft spot for you. Like, she just piles on the guilt for him. I hate her. No. And so then she just says, I'm going to stay. Give me a shirt. I'm sleepy. And I feel like he's been assaulted by her before. And she's this abusive person. And he doesn't know how to say no to her and make her leave without just outright. He doesn't want to cause conflict. So she takes advantage of that. And she's like, oh, well, I haven't been home lately. And he's like, are you still with that guy? And the way that they animate her, like, doing the thing with the chin to, like, get him to look at her, I was afraid she was going to try doing something sexual with him. And I was going to be like, bitch, that's where we draw the line. And as if we'd already not drawn the line 20 times before this moment. But the way she, like, tries to be like, oh, are you jealous of him? Are you jealous of him being with me? I'm like, bitch, no. Oh, I take it back so hard. I don't want him to be near her at all. Because she is. She's just like, you know, normally you have the blonde hair and the black haired protagonist. I want her to go away. Nope. And she's like, well, it didn't leave a scar at least. So that man, apparently, Rei tried to, like, help her. And he, like, punched him or did something. Yeah, he punched him. And she's like, Goto isn't a sane guy. And he's clearly, like, a lot older, which is problematic. And I'm like, girl, does your dad know that you're with this guy that looks like he's 40? Is there, like, girl has some daddy issues. She's, like, with this guy she shouldn't be with. She's toxic. She's manipulative. And she's like, and he's like, well, does he get violent with you? And she's like, no, if he did, I'd kill him. And I'm like, bitch, she would, right? And then she's like, yeah, because I love him. I thought Ugetsu from Given was toxic. I thought Urika from Skip and Loafer was toxic. I was wrong. This is toxicity at, like, its max. And she just sits there and leans back and goes, oh, I love him. That's why. And just, like, almost to say, like, because Rei's not a dick and the worst, that she can't love him and she'd rather love someone that was like that to her. Oh, it's like textbook. Like, she's just checking off the worst boxes. And the worst part about it that gets under your skin is that she's not over the top. She's awful. But it's so real because you know people like this. And I just want to, like, drive her to an island and drop her off on the island and sail away and leave her there. And the worst part about all of this is she's like, oh, do you not sleep very good? Oh, today's that match that decides your rank, isn't it? I'm like, she showed up specifically to throw him off. And then, to make matters even worse than it is, she's like, oh, well, oh, what an absolute trollop. She's like, oh, that man, you know, he's like 65. What a fighter. He can't move to the free class even after falling to C1. And granted, oh my God, Rei is so handsome. Like, even with the glasses or without, he's a very attractive character. She's like, oh, he played dad once, and, you know, he's not quitting even after all of that. I mean, he must really love Shogi, you know. She points out, and unlike you, she's like, all these people that you face, they really love Shogi, but you're just a prodigy who's really good at it. And it's a shame. Like, why do you get to have all the good stuff happen? You don't even like this game. Maybe you should just forfeit and give up and let somebody who's good at it, who has passion for it, have a chance. We came so far! And then this bitch just came around and ruined it. And she's like, oh, well, he'll demote it after this, so go. I guess you'd go strangle him like an old senile dog, but no one else wants to do it, but it kind of makes you worry. I thought in a situation like this, you'd be the type to throw the match, because you're such a nice guy. Oh. And then he's like, and that light that brought on the pounding rain. Oh. And then they had the wind blowing. Oh. Yeah. And the thing about abusive relationships is that you kind of do get Stockholm syndromed into it, where people that are manipulative like that, they make you feel like you're not deserving of any better. So you stay with these people who are awful, who have low self. I'm sure she has low self-esteem and she's horribly insecure about herself. And the only way to make her feel adequate is to tear someone like him down that's so much better than her. I can't. Oh, she needs to stay far away from the show. And I have a feeling she's going to be in it so much, and I hate her. Ah! Ah! I just want to hug Rei. I want to give him the biggest hug. Tell him he's better than her. He could do so much better. He needs to get away from her. Oh my God, change the locks on your door. Don't let her in. I should have spiked this. I am pissed, y'all. I am pissed. If he loses this match because of that bitch, nope. I'd crush this glass if I could, but I don't want to clean up the mess. Ah! So yeah! I'm so excited to hear your comments down below. Now, here's the thing. I don't know a lot about her. What I was going to say is some people in the comments back a ways ago were trying to tell me about her. I don't want to know about Kyoko. I don't want to know your perspective about her based on you seeing the whole series. I'm only on episode 8. We have 44 episodes in this series. I have so much more to go. So I don't want your analysis of her as a character because I know I'm going to find out more. But if you have a feeling about her after this particular episode before you got to the rest of her in this series, that would be fine to talk about, but I don't want to know how her character is going to change. I don't want to know how her character is going to be in the future episodes. I want to find that out for myself. But this episode, ooh, I wanted to fight her. I think I could take her. But I don't know. So I hope that Rei has a better episode next week, but I don't know if that's going to happen. So curious to hear your thoughts down below. In the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and I'll be back again real soon with more March Comes In Like a Lion. What a skank.